Thank you very much. So, Alexander Leva, Slovak Foreign Policy Association. I would like to ask Professor Rotfeld and Ron Asmus to make brief comments on the following, my consideration. Actually, all day today we speak about the need to re-engage Russia and to start to work with Russians, but nobody so far, so correct me if I'm wrong, didn't mention this major Russian proposal on the new European Security Pact. And NATO, as to the Russian proposal, is invited as one of the international organizations to engage in talks with Russia on that and to be one of the signatories. So I would like to ask you to make brief comments, because if we are serious about re-engaging Russia, we cannot avoid simply to have a debate on the discussion on this major Russian security initiative. And so what should or could be position of NATO? Thank you.
I'll go first very briefly, and I always caveat this by saying my baptism by fire as a U.S. diplomat. In my first week in office, I went off to Moscow. In my very first session with a Russian working group, a three-star Russian general said to me, this is 1997, February, if you bring Poland into NATO, it'll be nuclear war. And I remember taking notes, Poland, NATO, nuclear war, question mark. That was my sort of baptism by fire. So I've seen a lot of bad Russian ideas and proposals as a diplomat that you take and you try to transform them into something constructive. And I think the question is, I believe the Medvedev proposal is the culmination of a Russian effort to rewrite the rules of the game of European security because Moscow's concluded that those rules do not serve its interests. We need to debate whether we should stick to the Charter of Paris and all those rules or not. My view is we should stick to them, and we should say that there is an OSCE, a key, and that we're going into these negotiations and we're not going back and rewriting, but we're moving forward. But if you want to have influence and leverage with Russia, you got to engage with Russia. Not talking to the Russians or isolating the Russians is not going to give us leverage and influence. And the key question we know is, can we keep on engaging Russia, and will we at some point have a Russian leadership that thinks differently and thinks about having influence in different ways in Europe? And we need to keep on plugging away at that, but we need to do so from a position of cohesion and unity in terms of what we want. And that's why we need to have this debate among ourselves and with the Russians. And I'm not afraid of talking to the Russians, but I think it's very important to have some degree of consensus and understanding about what we're trying to achieve, what the basis is. Because if the conversation's about rewriting the rules of the Charter of Paris and Istanbul, then I don't want to have that conversation. If it's about wrestling with the Russians politically about how we go forward, I'm perfectly willing to do that. Indeed, I think it's an essential part of this question. How do we deal with a Russian that's a revisionist power in a political sense? Not an easy one.
Thank you. Professor Rotfeld.
I would like to say to support what Ron said, but it seems to me that the question was, I would say, to be more specific, what kind of the agenda, both in as far as substance and procedure. I would like to say the following, that Russia presented the 29th of November the draft of the Treaty on European Security, which was addressed by President Medvedev to the OSCE, and the draft of an agreement between NATO and Russia, which was presented by Minister Lavrov the 4th of December. And these two documents, they reflect, I would say, the present understanding of Russia, what are the problems. I do agree with Ron what Russia would like to achieve by that, and I will say that it is something rational behind, in a sense that since Helsinki final document, the time passed, system changed, the security environment is totally different, and also after the Paris Charter for a New Europe, which was signed in November 90, also 20 years past, Germany is unified. I would say the Warsaw Treaty Organization is dissolved, Soviet Union collapsed, etc. Altogether, we have a qualitatively new security environment. Now, there is no need, in my view, to think about new security architecture in the sense of the new organization or treaty. We have more than enough organizations, institutions, structures in Europe. The problem is that some of them are neglected, some of them are forgotten, some of them are not used properly. Let's take OSCE and what is suggested, I would say, the so-called Corfu process. This is one. Another one is the potential of the NATO-Russia Council. And the last one, what seems to me the most important, I would say, it is the possibility to do something in common. And as you know, under the auspices of the Carnegie Endowment, it was established the Euro-Atlantic Security Initiative. And this Euro-Atlantic Security Initiative is working on the new possible common proposal of the West and Russia. This Euro-Atlantic Security Initiative is chaired by Sam Nunn from the United States, Igor Ivanov, former foreign minister and former head of the National Security Council of Russia, and Wolfgang Ischinger of Germany, who is now the, I suppose it is the title, President, Chairman of the Munich Security Policy Conference. And there are 17 members. Among the members, there are 6 personalities from Russia, former politicians. Some people are still very influential. In other words, it seems to me that it is a time for some new, innovative, creative suggestions. And let's hope that it will be productive. I will stop here because I can speak about much longer, but it seems to me that it is just to respond to the question.
Thank you very much. General Wittmann, please.